Hello and welcome back to Courageously Kind. Today we are talking with our dear friend MJ Haynes, and you'll see what we're talking about in this episode, but we're very excited to have you here.
Nervy.
Oh my gosh, don't be nervous.
Don't be
This is chill, this is casual. We were trying to think of ways to make it feel more comfy.
I think we need blankets.
I think we need blankets, but I don't know where they would go. Maybe on the chairs.
Have blanket shawls, that'd
Right?
be cute, a little cozy moment.
And we could have little tea mugs or
We
something.
need mugs.
Yeah.
You could have each guest bring their favorite mug. That would be cute.
That would be
really cute.
so cute. We actually
Yes.
talked about teas with Dr. Biddle. That would have been so
That was
smart. She could have brought
perfect.
her little teapot. She got a teapot for Christmas. She's very excited about it. Yeah, I love it. Do we want to start with your favorite icebreaker question, Liz?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, my favorite icebreaker question. If you were a kitchen appliance or utensil, what would you be and why?
I also love this question, so I was pondering it last night. I feel like I would either be a stand mixer.
Oh, that's
Because
a good
I
one.
love to bake. They're sirty,
And
dependable.
they're versatile. They have
They're
all those
versatile,
attachments.
a bunch
Yeah.
of attachments.
Yes.
I'm very crazy. I'm very all over the place, but usually I have the same personality undertones, but it changes depending the position that I'm
Yeah.
in, you know what I mean?
That makes sense.
So I feel a stand mixer's good, but also I was thinking a toaster.
Oh.
Because toast. But also I feel when I get quiet, people forget I'm there, and then all of a sudden I say something and they're like, whoa! When you forget about your toast and then
then it
immediately
goes,
pops up and scares the crap out of you.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Incredible. Great
Those are great
answer.
answers.
Oh.
Yeah.
I
What do you
definitely
today?
liked your
Yeah.
measuring cup answer.
Yeah,
that's
I
a
think
good
a
one.
little measuring.
I feel like you guys
Measuring
would be
spoons.
a matching teacup set too. That would be cute.
I like that.
That would be cute.
That would be cute. Very tea vibe. What I'm
I
hearing
love
is we
tea.
need to have tea on this. Yeah, we have coffee, but we need mugs next time.
Cute.
I love
Oh,
it.
we could design courageously kind.
Courageously
mugs.
Kind mugs.
Cute.
I love it. MJ is a very
Amazing.
talented designer, so yeah, we're
I don't know if I'd say very talented.
I would
but-
say very
okay.
talented. Yes, so we're recruiting them to maybe work on some new merch and that sort of thing. So
Excited.
very exciting. You know what? I was thinking Liz has on our question sheet the nitty gritty questions. I was thinking that too, but nitty gritty sounds ugh. I don't know.
To me, it just sounds like
a clam.
intense.
Nitty gritty.
Yeah. I think of
More serious.
invasive or not invasive
Nitty-gritty.
because that has a negative connotation, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
The deep dive.
Yeah.
The topic of our conversation with the lovely MJ today is about inclusion on college campuses, which is fitting because we are on a college campus right now and we are college students. Sort of before we get to the inclusion part, or maybe this will tie into this question too, how did you decide where you were going to go to college? What sold you on Marywood? What was that decision like? And how did you decide what you wanted to study too?
So, I originally was going to go to culinary school.
Fun!
Because I really love cooking and baking. But I'm very family oriented, so I knew that opening my own restaurant and doing all that would be hard because of holidays and stuff. And,
Long hours and stuff?
And
Yeah.
running a business,
Yeah.
it's hard to balance family and work life with that.
Yeah.
So then when I was in therapy with my own therapist,
Slay.
he was like, have you ever thought about being a therapist? I was like, yeah, but I feel like I'm too messed up for that. I feel because mental illness is so strenuous,
Yeah.
I didn't think that would translate well.
Yeah.
But he told me about art therapy because ever since I was a kid, I knew that I wanted to do something with art.
You check out Marywood.
Yes.
You came on a tour.
So I came on a tour with D'Amber Galvin.
D'Amber did our tour too.
I was
love her.
wearing my Pride Adidas sneakers, and they're not super rainbowy, but the bottom sole is rainbow.
Oh, cool.
And so she was like, "Oh my god, I love your shoes." I was like, "Thank you." And she I don't remember the verbiage of how she asked me if I was queer or whatever, but then she I obviously said yes, and then she pulled down her mask and she had a septum, and we just had this little moment.
little moment,
yeah,
I
I was
see
just
you.
wait, are you? For those who aren't watching visually, I flexed my hand that little wrist moment. And then she was telling me about all of these other people that had said hi to her on our tour that were also gay. And I was like, oh my gosh. So there's a big community here. And then my final seller was seeing the Black Lives Matter.
That was huge for us, too.
Yes, I saw that, and I was like, oh my gosh, wow.
Yeah, yeah.
And D'Amber was like, yeah, the IHM sisters hung that up. And I was like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, not that, like, Catholicism is so bad, but, like, that's not something that I would have thought that a Catholically affiliated school would have been okay, like, putting out.
Yeah.
Or, like, through the sisters. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that is, like, definitely how I made my choice. And also,
Nice.
thank you, Siri.
Thank you, Siri, for your input. I'm leaving that in. That was hilarious.
My Indian Siri. And then I also, the other schools that I was, like, looking at were, like, over 3 hours away. And when my sister went to college,
far.
she was, like, in Rochester, which is 3 hours from me.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to be that far away.
Yeah.
Especially because, like, I'm actually really glad because my mom had some, like, health problems, so I was glad to be close.
Yeah, that's
And
good.
my grandpa has been, like, in and out of health problems, too. So
Yeah.
I want to make sure that I was, like, close enough if anything happened that I could, like, go home. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I decided to double major just because my freshman year, when I was taking general psych, my professor at the end of the class, literally the last day, she was like, hey, can I speak to you for a minute? And I was like, oh my God. And I was like, yeah, what's up? And she goes, what's your major? And I was like, oh, I'm an art therapy major. And she goes, you should consider switching just into psychology. And I was like, well, I have a psych minor right now. And she was like, I really think you should make it a major because, like, I can't wait to see what you do in this field.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I went back to my room and I cried.
Oh.
And then I applied for a double major. And so now I'm clinical psychology and art therapy. And then I have the minor in counseling and development.
We'd love to talk more about your experience on a college campus, but before we dive into that, we might have some listeners that don't really know what the term non-binary means. Do you mind explaining that to us?
Gender in general, there's a misconception that, like, gender and sex are the same thing, which they're not. So people often say there's, like, only two genders. That's not even true, like, in terms of sexes, because there's male, female, and then there's intersex, which, like, you could have a mixture of, like, different sex organs or, like, whatever. And then in terms of gender, like, it's such, like, a fluid spectrum. Like, you could literally be anywhere and it can change day to day or week to week, whatever. And especially with people with, like, dissociative identity disorder, like, they might have different alters that have, like, different genders and stuff too. But usually in terms of gender, there's, like, 3 umbrellas. There's, like, the female, the male, and then there's trans. So trans umbrella would be anything that's not gender conforming. So that's where, like, non-binary falls. So some non-binary people say they're trans non-binary. I don't, because I don't like saying that I'm trans. I don't like being under that umbrella very much, because usually that means that, like, you are the opposite gender that you were born, which I don't really feel that way. But for me, non-binary is neither. Some people it's both. And then there's also agender and gender fluid. Agender typically is no gender. And then gender fluid, like I said before, can change day to day, week to week, whatever.
Yeah.
I actually found that some gender fluid people will wear, like, different color bracelets. And, like, let their friends know, like, hey, this purple one means that, like, I use she, her pronouns today, and this blue one means that I use he, him pronouns today.
Oh, that's awesome.
Going back to the original question, non-binary for me, I lean more towards the male side. So if someone sees me on the street, I would want them to think that I'm a male. However, my inner circle, like you guys, my roommates, stuff like that, I want them to know that I'm neither. But I definitely present more masculine. Like, I've been on testosterone for, I think, 7 months now. And hopefully I'll be getting top surgery over the summer. So
Yeah. What pronouns do you use? If you
I use they,
asking?
them pronouns,
them.
but using, like, he, him pronouns isn't horrible.
Okay, cool. But, like, they, them is, like, what you would
They, them
prefer?
is what I prefer.
Yeah.
However, like, if someone, like, when I order my Starbucks or whatever, if they use he, him pronouns, that's fine.
Okay, yeah. Thanks. Thank you for explaining that, too, because that's a really good point, that some of our listeners might not just be familiar with these terms, and I know that they're used a lot nowadays, and people might not really understand what they mean. So,
My
Thank
biggest
you.
recommendation would just be,
Yeah.
like, surround yourself with more queer people.
Yes.
And try to, like, I try to do this with the BIPOC community. In order to be a better ally, just talk to the people within that community because they're going to have the best answers.
Right.
And each person's going to answer differently.
Yeah.
So, like, when I was learning about the BIPOC community, like, some people prefer being called people of color. Other people prefer just being called Black, and that's okay.
So you mentioned it a little bit when you talked about, like, deciding to come here and going on your tour and stuff. But what is it like to be, like, a queer person? Would you say that you're a queer person?
Yeah.
What is it like to be a queer person at a Catholic college and a Catholic institution? You mentioned you were a little nervous about it, but, like, how has your experience been on campus?
At Marywood, honestly, it's been pretty good. I mean, you always have, like, bad apples everywhere you go. But most professors are, like, open to learning.
Oh, good.
Another shout out to Collier Parker. He's a painting professor.
Oh, cool.
And there was one time where he misgendered someone in my class who uses they, them pronouns. And so that person wasn't there, but one of their friends corrected him. And
What a
he
good
was
friend,
like,
too. Yeah.
Yeah. Always defend your friends' pronouns, by the way.
Yeah. Stick up for your friends.
Yes. Because usually, like, queer people are, like, scared to do it themselves.
It's probably an uncomfortable thing.
It
Yeah.
is very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But he goes, isn't that, like, are we talking about more than one person? And so they explained it to him, and he was like, oh, and he understood, and then he would try his hardest for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
Like, to make sure that he was using they, them pronouns correctly. Most queer people aren't going to be offended if you mess up, but they will be offended if you don't try to correct yourself or try to, like, fix it.
Yeah.
And like I said before, just try to support, like, your queer people so that it's more comfortable for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I'm assuming you guys are cisgender. For those who don't know, cisgender means that you identify with your sex assigned at birth.
Yeah.
So, like, you guys putting your pronouns, like, in your email signature is, like, really
Yes.
helpful.
I think to kind of touch on the language point again, just to sort of drive that home of, like, I think a lot of people sometimes, myself included, are afraid of saying the wrong thing. But I think you mentioned a really great point when you said, like, if you say something and maybe someone corrects you, that's not an attack on you or your character.
Yeah.
It's a teaching moment, right?
Yeah.
It's a moment where you can take that in and say, oh, you know, maybe I do feel, like, a little attacked in this moment, but sit in that feeling and understand that, like, someone else is sharing, you know, their experience and their, what do I want to say? Like, the most respectful language to describe them. And of course we want to be respectful in our language, right?
And, like, also, I like to compare using, like, pronouns to, like, learning a different language. Where, like, if we were just talking about Spanish, if you said levantarme instead of levantarse, and I was like, hey, Maddie, by the way, it's levantarse, you would be like, oh my god, I'm so dumb, I'm so sorry, like, freaking out about it.
Right.
You would be like, oh, right, it is levantarse.
Right. Thank you for telling me that. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's the same thing with pronouns, where if you were to be like, oh, I'm going to hang out with MJ later, she's so cool.
Yeah.
And Liz was like, hey, by the way, their pronouns are they, them.
Right.
You wouldn't draw attention to it. You wouldn't be like, oh my god, I'm so stupid, I'm so sorry. Like, it makes it such a bigger thing than it needs to be, and then it brings more shame onto that queer person usually. So just, like,
because you don't want to make anyone feel bad,
you don't want to make them feel bad. You don't want to draw more attention to it.
Right.
So literally just be like, oh, I'm going to hang out with them later.
Right. Simple.
It's really simple.
things.
It's really simple to just, like, call the person what they want to be called.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
And I will admit, like, it is difficult. It is a learning curve because, like, when my fiance and I started dating, like, he used she, her pronouns and then they, them pronouns, and that was a hard switch for me. But it genuinely just takes, like, a few extra seconds of thinking before you speak.
Yeah. Which goes for everything in general. Just think before, or ask if you don't know.
Right. Like, my mom is, like, one of my biggest supporters with, like, me being queer, and it was so difficult for her.
Yeah.